This is Ray Pinky Velasquez, former A&R director of Vanguard Records, dance music department, which encompasses both Vanguard Records, dance music, and Flip Records, and former CEO, co-founder, and vice president of the Legends of Vinyl, and former DJ, club spinner at the Ipanema Discotheque in Manhattan, located at 240 West 52nd Street, between 7th and 8th Avenues, 2 blocks away from Studio 54, and current founder of Pinky Pack Productions. And what we're going to talk about today is obviously relating to the club scenes directly and indirectly, and the type of music that the Latino community was involved with in regards to this music and the evolution of Latin percussion as it relates to street sounds. Going back to my DJ days at the Ipanema, the Latin percussion was a very important part of the dance floor, of the mindset of me, the DJ, and how I communicated that message of party, dance, to the dance floor. When you think of the history of dance music, the Latino influence, the Latin influence is a very big part of it. And there was a lot of breakdancing in the early clubs. There was a lot of dance routines in the early clubs. You know, when I started working at the Ipanema, that evolution was already on a different level. But pre-disco days, back into the early 70s, 70, 71, 72, where you had these clubs like the Footsteps, the 310 and a half, the Kontiki, the Jungle. These clubs had a vibration, an attitude that they were thriving on and building on. And there was a lot of dance routines between dancers. For example, 2 males would face each other and have a routine for a break that existed on a record. Records like Baby Huey, Give It To Me, James Brown's Give It Up and Turn It Loose on the Sex Machine album. It's Just Begun by Jimmy Castor. Potential by Jimmy Castor. E-Man Boogie by Jimmy Castor. Life and Death in GNA by the Abaco Dream. That track itself was perhaps one of Sly Stone's first productions that started his career, but a great track in the early clubs to create that dance routine that I'm mentioning now. Now, when you think of the dance clubs, you think about the percussion, the element of the break. Why do dance records have breaks in them? Well, and it's funny when you think, because I've worked on the other side, on the radio side of things, and as an A&R director, you um, have to have an understanding of how radio works. And a lot of records for radio are about 3 or 4 minutes long, eliminating the big break in a record for radio. But on the club scene, these extended versions had long breaks. Not suitable for radio, but very suitable for the dance floor. So, the longer the break in a club, the more excitement it creates on the dance floor. When it comes to Latin percussion, when you think of instruments like the timbales, the congas, the bongos, the clave, these are instruments that create an excitement on the dance floor. They create another level of spiritual dance on the dance floor. And a lot of these records that I just mentioned, including records like Booker T and the MGs, Melting Pot, these records created excitement because they had these breaks in them. And the Latino movement thrived on these breaks. Scorpio, Ride Sally Ride, Dennis Coffey's Scorpio and Ride Sally Ride. Other records that had long breaks. To the point that DJs started looking to create their own mixes, their own versions of records using, for example, one break from one record, extending it and maybe connecting it with a break of another record. And now we have this new version using two songs or two breaks in a song to create more of a dance craze on the dance floor creatively. So, and why would that happen? Well, as DJs play records, they're testing what's going on the floor, and they see the excitement, they see the facial expressions, and they want to add to that. They want to give the audience a little bit more. So when a DJ leaves the DJ booth and his night is over, in his mind, his career is not over. His need to perfect what he's doing in that DJ booth to excite the dance floor is never ending. Okay, it's night and day thinking about creative ways to make the dance floor a little bit more excitable. And one of the best ways in a club, after you've understood the clientele that you have in a club, is to work on your music. Work on creating that excitement on the dance floor. And we all know the Latino community, they love percussion, they love energy in their records, because it creates more of an atmosphere where the dancer can, quote unquote, show off their dance routines. But the DJ is adding to that want that the dancer has to express herself, or himself. So it's a twofold, it's a two-part combination, but it's constantly being tested and pushed. Um, okay, so um, as far as my involvement with hip hop music, you know, I founded Public Enemy. Now, when I first met the group, Hank, Chucky D, Flavor Flav, Aaron. Also, I did produce a record for Aaron on Profile Records called Do the Wop. Um, and that was released in about 1986 or so. Um, but when I met Public Enemy, they were not called Public Enemy. They were called Spectrum City, and we signed them to Vanguard Records. I produced their very first single called Lies, and the B-side, we had another track that I produced for them called Check Out the Radio. It was our first hip-hop release on Vanguard Records. To be more upfront with the audience here, the record wasn't a major success. While that record went through its phase, like all records get released, and at some point they die out. Then we had a group called Twilight 22 that I was involved in the production. I found the group. Gordon Bahari, the producer, who was a protege of Stevie Wonder, and learned a lot about music, melody from Stevie Wonder. Well, we met at Vanguard Records, and Gordon was not a person that was into hip hop music. He was into more of the jazz, R&B type of music that Stevie was. Well, we sat together and I gave him an idea of doing a hip hop record. I gave him Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force, Planet Rock, so that he can kind of copy the rhythm track along with the Johnson Cruz Pack Jam, combine those two rhythm tracks into one rhythm track, create a bass line, and put some melody on the track and put a rap on it. He did more of that. Gordon did more of the production. I kind of guided him with the production. And when the production was done, I mixed the record with him in his studios in Huntington, Long Island. And then we finished the project at Vanguard Studios and released it. Smash record. And because of that, we had a follow-up record with Twilight 22 called Siberian Nights. In that process, because of the success of the group, we were now headed towards a Twilight 22 album. Therefore, we didn't have the time to do another single with Spectrum City. They left Vanguard and changed their name to Public Enemy, went to Columbia Records, Def Jam Records, and became perhaps one of the biggest, if not the biggest, rap group of the time, one of the biggest. So, incidentally, that record that I did produce for them, Lies and Check Out the Radio by the group Spectrum City, one of the tracks, that track, Check Out the Radio, the B-sided track, became part of the film South Central back in 1992, and the film was produced by Oliver Stone. and featured on in that movie on the soundtrack. So that's kind of a little bit of an insight um, on my hip hop tenure. And, um, so getting back to these songs, Babe Ruth, the Mexican, Turn It Loose, Give It Up and Turn It Loose by James Brown. The idea of why would a producer involved in a Jimmy Castor It's Just Begun record include timbales in the breakdown, especially if the record is not a Latin record. It's a dance record with some R&B overtones. So why do these Latin percussion occur on records? And obviously the Latin influence and the need to connect with the Latino community is in the mind of a producer. So you add timbales in a record. That's not a salsa record. You add bongos and congas to create that mental connection to the streets of the city. And it evolves over time. It becomes sophisticated over time. And records today still have that Latin percussion influence. Why? Well, like the old movie, Our Latin Thing, it's about reaching and communicating with the Latin community. Okay, so finally, I just want to add that again, the club scene evolved from the 70's, and there were dance routines. A lot of these records were rock based that were being played in the clubs with percussion. And if the record did not have Latin percussion, the bass lines were a guide, a leading force on the track to create that attitude of dance in the dance floor. Anyway, I want to say thank you to everyone for listening. I hope you've had a little tiny insight of the evolution of dance as it pertains to the Latino community. And I want to once again thank Derrick Colon for inviting me.